Welcome everybody, my name is David Chin. Today we are very glad to be hosting the third edition of our #Unplugged series in partnership with Samsung on the topic transforming logistics and transport operations with next-gen mobility and connectivity. We are very excited today to have with us Robert Souza, Executive Director and CEO for the Logistics Institute Asia Pacific, and Khor, Chief Information Officer for Schenker Logistics Malaysia, and Nathalie Duchemin, Regional Strategy and Business Development Mobile B2B for Samsung. So welcome all our panelists. So without further ado, let me kickstart with you. You know that the COVID-19 pandemic has swept across the world. The logistics and the transport sector has also been impacted, so in some ways that are good, in some ways that bring with it challenges, right? So maybe you want to kick us off by sharing how the pandemic has shaped the business and how has that also shaped your digital transformation plans in the industry that you operate in today. Go ahead, Annie.
Okay, so maybe let me share with you that in a way, Schenker has been quite visionary, right? Before the pandemic. I think before the pandemic, while we already had Teams and we had some of the other platforms that we could use, the take-up rate sometimes may not be as enthusiastic, partly because of non-familiarity, partly because some people are actually, in a way, sometimes they are scared of changes and technology. But the pandemic itself forces them to be on that platform. But I mean, for the transportation side, I think even before the pandemic, in order to get in the PODs and stuff like that, it's very inefficient if you do it via paper. Actually, there was an innovation that came out in which we provide them with a QR code, so they use their phones to scan it and gave us a POD that way, rather than scratch on glass and things like that used to be for mobile. Yeah. And also on the warehousing side, right? So because if I'm actually selling a warehouse today, I can't bring my potential customers to visit my warehouse. So now we are looking into virtual tours.
Transport, logistics and supply chain sector has faced a multitude of disruptions ever since the onset of COVID-19. And many supply chain companies have turned to technology in a big way to alleviate many of the disruptions and continue to serve customers effectively. What are your observations of the industry today, and how has technology helped to ensure that the logistics and supply chain industry continue to function despite the pandemic?
Technologies have been around for quite a long time, the digital technologies. I think what you mentioned, what happened in the pandemic, it accelerated the adoption. It made it more necessary for us to use such technologies without hesitation. So I think that was actually quite key. There are three technologies that we actually, seen very, they come to the fore very, very well here. Yeah. One is actually what we call the control tower technology. So you can see that a control tower akin to what's been at airport, actually coordinating landings and takes off, and actually making sure that once a plane takes off, it actually has somewhere to land. Yeah. So we've seen control tower technologies now become very necessary. Yeah. The other technologies that we have seen is actually simulation and twinning. That means creating computer models. Because, well, one thing we have learned in the last couple of years is uncertainties that was key to us, understanding and managing uncertainty. So we need models to be able to experiment with what-if scenarios. And so we need to build digital twins. Yeah, so this is something which we have seen come out very strongly. And that one is actually very basic visualization. And this is actually quite key for us. Yeah, we have to know where things are at any one point and make sure that the information there has been updated. Now, behind this is very key connectivity technologies, because if they are not interoperable and they're not connected, then they actually are not going to be significantly useful. So they might be useful to particular enterprises, but not necessarily so for a supply chain.
Thanks, Robert. Now, Nathalie, I'm sure you work with customers whom are similar to Annie's industry. They also work with mobile devices, right, to remain productive. Maybe you want to share some of the experience you have with the logistics industry and what they have been doing to use mobile to help them with their work.
Already before the pandemic, we saw a shift towards mobile. Because of these new technologies coming up like 5G, IoT, it's what we see is that logistics is not anymore about transporting goods or people from A to B. It's really about like transparency, connectivity, traceability, and those are paramount. And it enables, and that's where mobile comes in also. Where mobile devices can add value to help the logistics industry. So yeah, there were different use cases. And we work with Linfox in Australia, and also with the logistics company in Thailand, which used our mobile solutions and to enhance those efficiencies and this visibility really, and it has an impact on revenue. And but also what I just want to also add something what Annie just mentioned was about this safety, like in those warehouses, the people have to be there. So one solution we saw also in the pandemic was wearables who could help. So there was Ford Motors used our wearables to implement a safe distancing solution.
Like what Nathalie said, I totally agree with her. Actually, we also have a solution on IoT, but we actually started that IoT solution more for our freight side, where if you are sending sensitive goods and stuff like that, we have this solution called the Smart Box. So it actually can track many things, either temperature, tilt, it actually many things, yeah. So then what happens is if your goods itself is very sensitive and you do not want any tilting of the goods when it's in transportation, this Smart Box is actually for you.
Annie, and you mentioned about the concept of trust. The technologies you have implemented don't only help you enhance operational efficiency, but help increase the trust that customers have with you. And with this, I want to pivot back to Nathalie on the area of cybersecurity. We've seen a massive spike in our 2021 Tech Trends and Priority Survey in the use of IoT devices, the convergence of OT devices with IT systems, and inherently, this introduces security risks. Take, for example, the mobile phone today contains much more information about the customer, the goods that's being handled. So from a security perspective, what are some things that Samsung does to fortify those cybersecurity controls and give customers better assurances and increases their trust with customers?
Great question. Trust is always important. And when you talk about security, it's always about trust and privacy. So data privacy and trust in the integrity of the devices. I mean, and that's where Samsung, we have a strong position because, I mean, we're manufacturing everything from chip up. So we have a multi-layered defense-grade security in our devices. So from the hardware to the OS system to the application system, we can secure the different layers. And also we have something which is called Knox Vault. So the data you scan or you collect with IoT nowadays, making sure that they're encrypted and secure, like stored securely in your device. And then we work further with partnerships with Microsoft, Intune. So where we have an integration, making sure that everything is secured from device to cloud. As we heard from Annie, more and more companies are going to cloud. So you have to make sure that even from the whole chain is secure. I think, yeah, it's exciting and there are great solutions out. And of course, also, if you look at the Knox, we have our Knox solutions, how we manage devices. Managing devices remotely, securing them in the terms of the pandemic, of course, this is key that you have to be able to manage them remotely and check the integrity of the device remotely. And those device management solutions can help them, the companies, to do this.
Yes, you have to have it on such mobile devices to be able to capture the information and make execution and decisions. Yeah, that's very key. That's real-time sensing. When you actually look at it, that information then has to feed back into the command and control. Okay, because that's the ground information that feeds back for that meta level analysis. You have to actually make sure that you're building robust plans for execution. So you have to have a mixture of both. Without that, the connectivity and the mobility or the mobile devices on the field to enter the real-time information or to capture in the real-time information, then the sensing at the command and control, is actually just meta level.
Thanks, Robert. So with that, I'm going to close this interview. Thank you so much, Nathalie and Annie.